Okay, for this activity, the layers and effects in your activity guide, we're going to look at how to take a photo and sharpen it or to blur, and then how to create layers of pictures to take one picture, cut it out, and place that cutout onto another picture. So what you'll need to do is open up Photoshop and go to Edit and Enhance Photos. And in here, we're going to open up our pictures. I'm going to start with a dancer. And what you can do for this is you can actually use photos that are located in your student folder. So if you go into that and you go into the project resources and you go into images, the pictures that you'll want to use are the photos or the raster graphics are the two that would work here in Photoshop. So you can pick out of the categories in those two folders and find yourself a picture. When you go into the folder to look at pictures, to actually see the picture, you can click on it and it'll show it at the bottom, but much easier is to go and select large icons, and then you can see the list of the pictures and makes it much easier to see what they look like. So I already have some pictures that I pulled out that I want to use, so I'm going to pick my dancer. And what I need to do here is I need to check and make sure that it is nice and crisp and clean. So if your picture has got a slight blur to it, you can select this tool in the Enhance menu, the Unsharp Mask. And what that will do is it will sharpen your entire picture by a certain amount. And so what you can do is you can zoom in on a certain part and see it take effect. So I'm going to find the bottom of her shoe here. And what'll happen is as I slide that slider bar over to the right, you'll notice the little details of the shoe are going to kind of stand out a little bit more, and you're going to see that happen in the actual picture. So the zoomed in part will show that. So the more you'll go over to the right, the more detailed those little features will be. So if I slide it over to the left, you'll see it looks a little more natural. So it's really a balance of the natural picture and making sure that the things that need to be nice and crisp and clean are showing. So we don't want to go too extreme, because as you can see, 500% here is a lot, and then we go back to 1%, basically nothing, and this is the natural picture. So for things that may be blurry, especially around the edges of fine details, we'll want to use this unsharp mask. So there's different sliders here that we can use to adjust, and so usually less is better with this tool. So you don't want to do too much with it, or else it will make your picture look worse. So we just want to do a little bit with this picture just to show a little bit more of the detail. It's very, very subtle. So once you're done, then you'll click OK, and you'll be able to see a little difference, but not much. There's also a blur tool that you can use in order to blur parts that may be a little bit too much um, sharpness. So here there's a blur tool, this little water drop, and you can blur parts of the picture that may be things that you want to kind of make a little more subtle. The more you click on the tool, the more it will apply. So you have to keep on clicking and moving, and it will start to blur parts. And you can increase the strength or decrease the strength of the tool. So if we make it really blurry, and we go over that, as you can see, the more I go over her hand, the more blurred it looks. So it's a very subtle tool. We don't want to use it too much. So there might be parts that you have to blur in order to make a little less obvious. So that works just the opposite of what we just saw. So what I want to do next, and this was the using the unsharp mask section. The next section is called the layers section. And basically what you're doing is you're cutting out one picture and you're putting it on top of another. So you're layering one picture on top of another. And those layers are going to be located down here in the bottom right corner. So right now I just have my background picture, is what they call it. So I can add in a picture on top of it. So I'm going to take her and I need to cut her out. So I'm going to use my tools here, my selection tools, and I'm going to select the background on my picture because the background is pretty much very similar color, white and a little gray. So it'll be easier for me to pick the background than it is to pick her. So it depends on your picture. You can pick the actual thing that you want to keep. I'm going to pick the stuff I don't want to keep and make little adjustments here and there. So I'm not going to make this perfect. I'm just going to go quickly so I can pick the parts I need and show you what I need to. So some of the stuff like around her hair, it's going to be really hard to make that perfect. Um, so I'm just trying to select all the gray and then go back and try to get rid of some of the stuff that, and I can mix and match the tools. So I'm going to go in and I'm using that shift and that alt key to go back and forth between adding and subtracting from what I want to keep and I don't want to keep. So I'm just going in and cleaning up my picture. It just takes some practice. And sometimes the tool cooperates, does what you want to do, sometimes it doesn't. You just have to play around with it. Okay, so I got most of her selected, so we'll go ahead and use what I have. It's not perfect. So right now I have the background selected. So if you select her and you go through and use the tools, then you don't need to do this step. But I'm going to go up here to select and I'm going to inverse my selection. That means just flip it, flip flop it. So now she's selected, not the background. So I can go in and I can open up another file and I have my son here. And what I want to do is I want to put her on the sun dancing. So I have my pictures down here. So I'm going to go back to her and what I want to do is copy what I have selected. And I'm going to go back to my other picture and I'm going to go paste. And as you can see here in the layers section, it shows one layer on top of another. So literally, if I move this, I could put, oh, need other layers, but I could actually move these and I could stack them in a certain order. So whatever's on top of the list here will show up on top here. So um, after you cut stuff out, that's a great time to use that unsharp mask or the blur tool. That's a really good time to use that. So especially around the edges where you cut, you'll want to go ahead and change the edge and make it a little softer. So I'll change this strength down a little bit. And so I have layer one, my girl selected here. So if I have the sun selected, I can't do anything to her. So I have to make sure I have the right thing selected. So I'm just kind of blurring the edge to make it a little softer because when you cut stuff out, it makes a sharp edge that doesn't look very good. So you can kind of blur it right here. You can see it's kind of doing its job, a little white. So I'm just going around it real fast, just going around her, just blurring that edge. So it's very subtle. You can barely see it happening. You only want to do it a little bit. So you can go over those edges and you can soften those up a little bit so they're not real sharp, like it looks like you cut them out. So it looks a little more natural. So that takes you through doing the layers and effects. So you can add more layers on top. Like we can even put a text layer and we can add words on top of here. So I went over and selected my text tool. I could type here and I can type that in, edit my text however I want, make it bigger. And as you can see down here, there's a layer for text and I can move those. And if I put the dance underneath and I move by using the move tool, move dance. It goes behind her because it's underneath over here. So I can change the layers, move stuff where I need to, and I can make a nice little collage of different pictures. So that is the layers and effects activity.